Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Action for the Soul. This week's Parsha is Perashat Mishpatim. And the Parsha begins with the words, Ve'ele ha-mishpatim asher tasim lefneihem. These are the laws that you shall place before them, set before them. And the commentators are all bothered by the idea of the word ve'ele. It should just say ele. Vav in front of a word is always, they say, it's a letter achibur. It is the letter that joins one thing to another thing. And therefore, if we were to write the most simplest verse possible over here, it would simply state, Ele ha-mishpatim, these are the laws. And then just in general, like, why are we going into the laws? And typically when God asks Moses to communicate to the Jewish people, he says, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Daber el bnei Yisrael. And over here he says, Ele ha-mishpatim asher tasim lefneihem, these are the laws that you shall place before them. Why mishpatim over here? Why tasim lefneihem? A lot to unpack. And then one last idea that I want to add into this is that as it segues from this verse, Ve'ele mishpatim asher tasim lefneihem, the next pasuk reads, Ki tikne evet ivri. When you buy a Jewish slave, Shesh shanim ya'avod, he shall work for 6 years. Ubishvi'it ya'atzeh lechavshi chinam. In the 7th year, he has to go free without having to make any payments. Why is the first of the mishpatim that are taught laws about evet ivri? Okay, and then we're going to add one more question. That's why use the word ivri in general? Why not say evet Yisrael? Why is an evet ivri called an ivri and not a evet Yisrael or just an evet? Okay, so we're making a distinction between evet and Kanani, but let's just unpack it. The el mishpatim. Okay, so the Torah gives us laws. And the reason why the Chachamim point out that it starts with the letter Vav, Vav is to connect you to the Parsha before. In the same way, the Parsha before talks about the Aseret Dibrot, God coming down in this seminal moment and giving us the spiritual heights of this transformative moment in time where the Jewish people receive the Ten Commandments, right? Now, these detailed civil laws that govern daily life are all part of the same system. Don't think that the Ten Commandments, the spiritual lofty parts of our development and growth, is one system and the torts and the laws are a separate system. No. Understand that all of these laws are about bringing us into a state of holiness. It's about transforming the mundane into something more meaningful. And that is the connection between Ve'ele ha-mishpatim, these laws. And these laws are connected to those laws. Just like the Ten Commandments are spiritual, coming from the divine, so too, these laws and mishpatim are also commandments that are coming from God, coming from the divine. Now, what is the connection between this particular legal system and this pasuk over here, which speaks about the idea of asher tasim lefneihem? Rashi points out, he says, Asher tasim lefneihem, he says, tasim lefneihem keshulchan ha'aruch umuchan la'echol lefnei ha'adam. I want you to put together a set table before them so that each person is ready to eat. In a nutshell, what God is telling Moses over here is, I don't want you to just teach them dry law. I want you to teach this to the people in a way where it's meaningful. Like you're sitting and ready to eat. The Shulchan Aruch, these words are actually used by Rabbi Yosef Karo to describe, the title for his book, for the Shulchan Aruch, the Magnus Opus work on all of Jewish law. But how is it supposed to be taught to us? Something that is, that elicits the same emotion as someone who's hungry. You're hungry, you want to feast, you want to get in there, you want to dig in. That is how Moshe is supposed to go ahead and impart these laws. Spend more time figuring out how to make the medicine go down and give it in a way that's super meaningful. Don't just place it before them. Asher tasim lefneihem. Take these laws, just like the light spectacle of Har Sinai was done in such a way where it captivated our imagination. I want you to take these laws and pass it down like a shulchan aruch, a table ready, set for people to sit and eat and dig in. That's how we're supposed to go ahead and impart these laws. Great. But still, seems interesting that the mishpatim are here. Interesting that the Torah goes out of its way to tell us a little bit about these laws right after Yitro. Why the laws of Evet Ivri? Why can't we learn about the laws of something else, something more meaningful? Maybe the laws of the of the Mishkan, maybe the laws of Karbanot, maybe the laws of how we get close to God, maybe something else. Why is it that the first set of laws that are taught over here are the laws that are, expressing this concept of Evet Ivri? Now, you have to be mindful that the Zohar tells us a couple of things over here. Number one, he says that this Ve'el Mishpatim is talking about Gilgulim. Like, where did you get Gilgulim from? Right? Gilgulim, reincarnation. And he's saying, the Zohar, is that, that sometimes you could go to a court case, you could be in a situation which is so difficult, so painful. Today's a day where Hamas released the bodies of the Bibas family. And I've gotten so many phone calls from people asking about how do I wrap my head around this? How do I stay grounded? How do I stay focused? It's so depressing, so heartbreaking, and it's true. It's terrible what they did to this family. Innocent people, innocent children, a young baby boy taken and murdered. It's his brother and his mother. I mean, unbelievable. And the spectacle that they put out to Hamas is absolutely grotesque and disgusting. The Zohar says that sometimes legal systems don't express the full weight of justice in this world, and therefore there's Gilgulim. I'm not suggesting that we understand how these things work. We certainly don't. But I think that the Zohar is trying to say that the laws are there to create justice, and sometimes we find ourselves in circumstances where we don't feel like we're living in a just world. So the purpose of the legal system, though, is to transform the world into a dwelling place for God, right? You create boundaries, you create laws that are not abstract, that are spiritual at its core, things that you and I as a society need to develop. And in that space, we literally channel God's energy into the physical world, and that's how we change it, okay? The idea that I've been holding on to today is the idea that it's a famous quote from the Kutzker Rebbe, who says that Hashem is found wherever we let him in. And this time that we're in right now is certainly a time where we have to be asking ourselves, are we letting God into our world? What does that mean exactly? Are we letting God into our lives? Are we aware of the fact that there's a loving, infinite being in the universe that somehow has a bigger plan for good? Even though when I look at darkness and barbarity and disgusting human beings that behave in ways that even some animals can't behave in, I believe that God's part of the plan. That there's something happening here. I don't fully understand it. There's something bigger, some bigger cosmic event happening. Maybe that, this is about unity. Maybe this is about painting us, the Jewish people, finally coming together and recognizing that our differences, our backgrounds are irrelevant, that we're part of one people, and we need to feel a sense of responsibility to one another. Maybe it's about opening ourselves up to the people in our lives that we've pushed out, and we need to just work on healing. We're hurt. We're in pain. And the only way to fix and heal that pain is by recognizing that energy needs to be channeled in a place that is positive. The laws are not just abstract stam laws. The laws are unique laws that are designed to bring this spirituality into the world. Laws are the ultimate expression of God's will, even more than miracles. Laws are designed so that we can figure out God's plan. People often tell me, Rabbi, there's too many laws. They're overwhelming. It's just too much. Judaism is so hard. There's Shabbat, so many principles. I'll never get it right. Prayer, there's no room for self-expression. These are all nonsense. This is nonsense, right? The idea that Judaism, is a book filled with laws that are just stam for the sake of laws is not true. Judaism did something more. You see, the laws are the things that set us free. I know it sounds kind of like paradoxical, because don't the laws obligate you? And the answer is they do. But our laws, we believe, are laws that come from an infinite source that want us to live a life of meaning and depth. And therefore, the Torah revolutionized the idea of freedom. True freedom doesn't come from a world where there's no rules. True freedom means living with a moral framework. It means living a life with dignity and justice. Mishpatim establishes a society of responsibility, caring for the stranger, protecting the people that are vulnerable, living a life of dignity and justice. We want to ensure that we're bringing justice. That's not what the Greeks believed in. The Greeks believed that ethics was a human construct. So many people today believe that morality and ethics is a human construct, and therefore it only depends on your moral, reality that you're in, and it's all arbitrary. We reject this, obviously. The Torah focuses on the idea of a ger, a yetoma, an almana, a convert, an orphan, a widow, because that is a society we want to build. We want to build a society that's rooted in justice and kindness, not some sick, barbaric society that will bring out dead bodies and coffins of babies and celebrate it with their families with music. That's a sick, twisted, broken society without any laws or any care for life, no dignity, no justice, only injustice. And it goes both ways. You see, people in that society will end up destroying themselves. Without structure, your society leads to anarchy. Torah laws is what binds us. It creates a moral freedom. It ensures that no one is above the law. Not even the king in Judaism is above the law. The king has to follow Jewish law. And no one is beneath dignity. Think about what rules we have in our society that protects true freedom. You see, freedom is something that is so easily lost. Freedom is something that we could easily lose instantaneously. We don't even appreciate it in this country, the freedom that we have. It was Ronald Reagan who said that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Make sure that we're not the last generation that's going to extinguish it. The Torah laws are so overwhelming, Rabbi, it's too much for me. You know what? The laws are there to help design the game. The laws are there to help create boundaries so that you and I can make the most out of the world that you and I are in. Okay, that's what it is. It's ultimately about bringing God into the system, right? The rules. When I play those rules, when I live with those rules, I'm able to transcend. Now, the Jewish people were slaves. Last week they got the Torah. They got in Perashat Yitro. They got the 10 Commandments. And this week's Parsha, we say the Mishpatim. And the first law you're going to tell me about is the idea that there's something called an Evet Ivri. That's what you want to go ahead and preach. That's what you want to teach. That's what you want to give over. And the answer is yeah, because it's so easy to lose all of it. And the proof is, by the way, if you know the story in Genesis, the Jewish people are constantly fighting to go back. They want to be back as slaves. No one wants to deal with the burden and responsibility of freedom. It's much easier being a slave. The Torah does not want you to be a slave. It understands that you need a rigid process for growth. The example I often give is the Olympian. You want to be great, you want to be excellent, well, you need a rigid a process of training, of diet, of scheduling and sleeping and going through the same exact procedure over and over again until you find it to the point where you actually achieve greatness. That is what these laws are. These laws create a society of moral freedom and responsibility. They are able to, we recognize that these mitzvot, the commandments, are there to transform the world into a place of kedusha, of holiness. The Parsha last week, the Torah reads, when Moses brought down these hewn stones, right? The word over there is charut, that God engraved the words, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, Asher tzidchem mi'eretz Mitzrayim, took you out of the land of Egypt. He engraved it into the stone. Midrash says, Al tikre charut ela cherut, but rather read that word as freedom. The laws themselves bring freedom, my friends. What is it like to raise children without rules? What do those kids do for society? Versus the kids who had those healthy boundaries and were given a good sense of morality, a good sense of self. Those kids end up building the most amazing place, the most amazing world you could possibly imagine. I suspect that the reason why the first law that we learn in Mishpatim is Evet Ivri is because it's so easy to slip and fall and become an Ivri. An Ivri is someone on the other side. If you look at the word Ivri, it's often used as a derogatory word. Avram HaIvri was a title that was given to Avram by Nimrod. He was that freak that came from the other side of the river, the other guy. The Ivri is what the Egyptians called Yosef. Let's bring him and let's play around with the Ivri, that weird, strange guy. The Jewish people, when they're in Egypt and the Egyptians are talking about how they're going to re-enslave them and do all these harsh decrees, they call them Ivrim. Evet Ivri is a derogatory term the Torah uses. You're no longer fit to be a Yisrael. Do you know what the word Yisrael means? Yisrael comes from two different ideas. One is Ki sarita im Hashem, that you fought with God and prevailed. That's what Israel means. And the other is Sar El, Yisrael. Sar Kel means princes of God. How do you build a relationship with the infinite being, an infinite mind? Well, you figure out the things that he likes and the things he doesn't like every other relationship. You figure out the do's and the don'ts. In Judaism, we have something called the mitzvot aseh and mitzvot lo taseh, positive commandments and negative commandments. The positive commandments is the things that I do that draw me closer. The negative commandments is that I can create a vessel that protects me and insulates me from the insanity of the world itself, so I can still feel that deep connection to this spiritual light that God is trying to bring into this world. I don't understand how all this at the end plays itself out. I only know that I believe there's a God that has a plan. I believe that that with all the pain in the world, there's always something profound and good that comes out as a result of it. I'd like to believe that what the Bibas is, it brings us one step closer to uniting humanity, not just the Jewish people, but all of the world, to come together so we could bring God back down onto a plane that allows us to recognize our true nature and purpose. Souls with a body, not bodies with a soul. Let me end with a question. What is one mitzvah or halacha that you once saw as restrictive, but now see as something that is empowering and meaningful? I'll tell you what mine was. It was Shabbat. Shabbat is the ultimate expression of laws. So many do's and don'ts. It's all there so you can experience the meaning and the depth of Shabbat. Stop relating to Judaism as a set of laws that are restrictive, and instead see them as the proper springboard that allows you to create the boundaries necessary to express the best version of yourselves. Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom Mevarach. Thank you for listening.